you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assistant Secretary Schenker, I'm gonna start off by just reading the lead of a story in the Wall Street Journal from yesterday about Egypt and about one young woman in particular, Esra Abdel Fattah, who's a political activist in that country. The lead of the story is Egyptian security officers grabbed her from her car in the country's capital on October 12th and blindfolded her, took her to a secure facility. Two lawyers who visited her in prison said she was slapped, beaten on her arms and back, threatened with electrocution as officers demanded the password to her mobile phone. When she refused, the officers bound her hands and legs, choked her with her own jacket, forcibly used her fingers to unlock the phone. And you know as well as I do, I know your experience and you know mine, that this is a routine story in Egypt. And things have gotten worse in the last month. More than 4,000 people detained since protests seeking the removal of President Sisi started up, the largest, I think, wave of arrests that the country has seen since he came to power. And you know, I don't think I need to ask you if this is wrong, because I'm sure you agree that it is. But I will ask this, since our policy towards Egypt is based, or allegedly based, on advancing our security interests, does this kind of repression, which is escalating now, help or hurt legitimate efforts to fight extremism and terrorism in the country?
Thank you, Congressman. I'm familiar with that story. I know Esra. I met her several times. I think it's outrageous. You should know that I had the Egyptian ambassador in my office last week to talk about Esra. This matters greatly to the administration. Egypt has a long way to go on human rights. You heard the administration made a statement in September talking about the rights of Egyptians to demonstrate peacefully and the obligation of the Egyptian authorities to protect demonstrators. This is something that is very important to the administration. We talk about it.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that you did that. But I guess I'm asking a more fundamental question, because I remember sitting in your chair a few years ago saying something along the lines of Egypt has a long way to go, and it seems to have an even longer way to go today, and yet here we have the same security relationship that we used to have. You know, any progress in Sinai over the last several years? And once again, the question I would ask you, do their tactics help or hurt in the fight against what we say is our shared enemy?
Actually, on Sinai, they have made some progress. I think it's incremental. They have received training that is more narrowly tailored to that type of counterterrorism mission. But more importantly, they have recognized, and I think through our council, that counterterrorism requires more than just a military component. And I'll actually let my colleague, Mike Harvey, talk about what we're doing and what the Egyptians are doing in this Sinai in that regard.
Well, actually, hold on. I don't have that much time. So because I have a different question I wanted to ask Mr. Harvey. But look, I would just say the fundamental problem here is that, you know, even as the president pulls back from Syria, claims that it's just a bunch of sand and we need to get out of the Middle East and we can't do these things forever, when the people we were helping, both Kurdish and Arab, are actually fighting and dying with us to fight terrorism, many of whom absolutely share our values, incredibly brave civil society activists who we are no longer supporting because we have pulled back so much of our programming there, and yet we continue to spend $1.3 billion of the taxpayers' money helping the Egyptian military put on military parades with their tanks. And that doesn't sit well with me. I have a very quick question with very little time left for you, Mr. Harvey, and it's about Yemen. When was the last time we, USAID or through the UN, provided a no-strike list to the Saudi military in terms of humanitarian locations, targets that we asked them not to hit in Yemen?
Congressman, I actually can't answer that question. I don't know, but I do know that it's a constant point of discussion between our two governments.
Okay. So, but we have provided them with no strike lists.
We certainly have,
Okay.
both through AID and through our DoD colleagues.
Okay. I think that's a very important thing to confirm on the record, because we have, not just broad concerns about human rights and targeting that we've shared with the Saudis that they haven't always listened to, but specific locations and coordinates that they have hit that we have specifically given them as locations not to hit. I think that elevates this to the highest possible level of concern. Thank you. I yield back.